Now we are going to have a very special conversation in honor of our list, again, that published this morning, the most powerful women in business. My editor-in-chief, Allison Chantel, is going to have a conversation with Julie Sweet, the chair and CEO of Accenture, who has consistently been near the top of the list. Today is no different. Julie joins us for Washington, and of course, we will welcome your questions as well. So keep them, raise your hands, and after Allison does some initial questions, she'll go to the audience. So please enjoy and welcome Julie. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Julie, thank you for joining us this afternoon. It's a pleasure always to talk with you. And congratulations, huge congrats are in order, Julie, for, again, being ranked one of our most powerful women in business in the world.
Thank you, Allison. I'm very honored to be on the list again with so many of my friends. Really, everyone, I know so many of the women on the list, and it's a great honor, and it's a terrific recognition of my team because all of us really represent the strength of the people we have around us. I will say that I am so sorry that I'm not there in person. I have had the opportunity over the last few years to be in the kingdom and the Middle East more broadly. I think it is one of the most exciting places in the world. I keep trying to convince my two daughters that they should be studying Arabic and moving to the Middle East. I have not yet accomplished that, but I still have time. They're 17 and 18. But I just think it's such a dynamic part of the world, and I have met so many great leaders there, men and women. And so I definitely have a lot of FOMO today because I would love to be there with all of you. So thank you for getting to including me.
We see Rachel, the great Rachel Frey, who is the comms director for Accenture. She's an amazing woman as well. She'll be back shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you some stats about Julie. She's a super impressive lady and just an impressive person. Last year, we launched a most powerful people list for Fortune because we were like, you know what? We love celebrating gender. Some of these people are just freaking great people in general. And Julie, of course, was at the top of that list as well. She runs Accenture, which has 800,000 people working for it. It's a ginormous company. She has clients in 122 countries and offices in more than 52 places. So she really has a great global perspective. I want to get just a quick, while we are waiting for Julie to reconnect, a show of hands. Does anyone have questions for Julie? I'm going to be able to ask two. So I could spot you early. Think about them now if she ever comes back. Otherwise, I'll just keep rambling, and we could just keep doing this thing together. Does anyone have questions for me? I'm happy to answer as well. So yeah, I could go into how we make the most powerful women list. It's actually, yeah. It's a big mystery. We get lots of questions about it every year. I'll remove some of the mystique for you while I'm up here doing my shtick. So we actually do try and quantify power. First off, if you asked this room, what does power mean? You would probably get a different answer from just about everybody. So it's a really hard thing to define, but for us, we look at a number of things. One is just surely the size of the business that they oversee.
I'm trying to get the connection back.
Oh, this is good. Okay, great. So we look at the P&L, basically, that the person oversees. That is the first and foremost factor. And Julie's back. Julie, you saved me from having to go through the whole methodology of how we make most powerful women.
I'm so sorry, and it was a really unfortunate freeze, too.
Oh, no.
So I was looking that way, but...
Oh, no, you're back. Now you're back. We're good. We're going to run with this.
Where did you lose me?
So I was just explaining to them
Okay.
how much you oversee. So about 800,000 employees, 120 different countries where you have clients, over 52 offices around the world. So your global perspective is incredible. But the first thing I really wanted to ask you, Julie, is how are you feeling today? Because I'm not sure if people realize the reason that you can't be here with us, but you just had a huge thing happen in your life, and you were so kind to be willing to share about it. So I wanted to ask you how you're feeling.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm doing well. I'm still recovering. I really wanted to be there. I'm recovering from breast cancer. I just finished radiation a week ago, so I'm in actually the worst part of the side effects, but the end of the treatment. So I'm super excited that I see an end in sight, and I'm so grateful because I've had just incredible medical support and so much support from people around the world, both at Accenture and outside Accenture, many of the women on the world's most powerful list. So I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and the one message I would have for all of you is that I can be in a great place right now because of early detection. I had breast cancer 11 years ago, and I found it on a mammogram. And this time I found it through a self-examination. And so I never lose an opportunity to remind all of us as busy leaders to take care of our health, and specifically with breast cancer, to get your screenings.
Thank you, Julie. Hugely important to remember that if you don't have your health, what do you have? So I'm so glad you're taking care of yourself. I'm so happy that your body's responding so well. We're just really, really happy to hear that. So a lot of people pay you a lot of money to get your advice on what they should do running companies. So I want to take that time to do that today. I know after President Trump's Liberation Day, you had about 900 calls, I am not exaggerating, with executives from all over the world asking, what the heck do we do now? So there's a lot of uncertainty happening. And I was wondering for your perspective on what is your advice to companies right now? So many of them are unable to see around corners. We're literally seeing executives pulling guidance that they had given for the rest of the year or coming up with multiple scenario plans for how to run their company. How are you advising people to act in this moment of global uncertainty?
Well, Allison, it's a really good question. And I think there's a little bit of a separation between what's happening externally, like with companies pulling guidance, and a significant shift that I'm seeing really in the last month. And so after the tariffs were announced and there was this heightened level of uncertainty, there were tons of articles written about there's a pause, that the new word is pause. I would share with all of you is that the shift now is not about a pause. And so while companies are rightfully reflecting the uncertainty, and for some of them that means they don't have the visibility to give guidance, the tenor of the conversation has moved from we're not sure what to do to we have to not just be resilient, but we need to win in this market. And so it has definitely moved from pause to focus. And so what's happening now is that companies are saying, we want to be the company that moves the fastest, that really focuses to win regardless of the environment. Because no one believes that this environment is like it's like COVID, that eventually it'll definitely change, et cetera, right? And so I love seeing this shift. And so you're not necessarily seeing it yet externally, but in all of my conversations with CEOs, it's very action-oriented, but also about focus, using the opportunity to get the organization, the company aligned around a few big priorities that, if successfully executed, will really change the game. And they want to do that kind of while they're hoping others are not going to move as fast because of the uncertainty and of lack of visibility.
I think that's really great advice to not pause. And we had spoken earlier, there was a lot of lessons learned in COVID about resiliency, about moving fast in uncertain environments, but also companies sort of got a pass during COVID. It was like, this is a pandemic, I don't know, the bottom line, meh. We got small business loans, all sorts of things to help them cope, but there's no forgiveness right now. The uncertainty is just uncertainty, and if you put your business on pause, you're taking arguably much bigger risk. So Julie, there is a bit of a geopolitical reordering happening. I'm curious from your vantage point, given how much global business you oversee and all the clients that you work with, how should business leaders be preparing for that? Where do you think things will shake out? What's your perspective on, let me just ask you the global geopolitics question now. How should we be all thinking about what's going on?
Sure. Again, I think it's hard to have a crystal ball, and we've seen that even with the path around tariffs over the last 4 weeks. And one of the lessons that we took away from COVID, and that I used to talk to a lot of CEOs early on about, was that if you're not doing something different, then you're probably not really adapting as fast as you can. And so when you think about the geopolitical implications for companies and industries, it is different, right? If you're in communications, most of your market is actually, most of the time, pretty domestic, but you'll be impacted by the fallout of tariffs versus a global consumer goods company that maybe has a global supply chain that is more resilient than it was maybe going into COVID, but not perhaps resilient enough given some of the potential impacts of geopolitics. In all cases, the answer isn't on the shelf, and it isn't doing the same thing that you're doing today. And so while you have to answer the question for yourselves in the context of your country and your industry, as an individual leader and as a company leader, and I'm doing this for my own business, I'm asking myself, what am I changing because of the heightened risks? What am I changing because of the broader set of scenarios that I'm facing than I was facing 6 months ago, a year ago? And in fact, our scenario planning has changed. Like, that's one of the things, like when I go to my board, I say, here's how we did scenario planning. Here are the new scenarios and how we're doing scenario planning today. And if you take away only one thing from today, I would say it should be the ability to articulate as a company and as an individual leader, what am I doing differently in order to meet the moment, is the most important message I can tell you. Because if you cannot articulate for your own company or whatever part of the company that you're leading, and for how you yourself are leading and prioritizing and connecting externally what is different, then you're probably not changing fast enough.
I love that advice. So what are you doing differently? It's the key takeaway. You should not be doing business as usual. This is not business as usual moment. There's a lot of change going on. It's great advice. One of those big changes, we just can't stop talking about AI. I think we're all a little bit sick of that buzzword, but it's not really a buzzword. I mean, this thing is the most transformational technology that we've, I think, ever encountered. And so, Julie, your firm has really done a lot to help organizations wrap their heads around this technology, how they should be using it for their own efficiencies. We're also hearing about legacy companies have no match for what the future companies that are going to be that are AI first. So I'm curious, how are you helping people shape what their AI priorities should be as they're running companies? When someone's coming up with their AI strategy right now, what do you tell them?
So, sometimes the more things change, the more things stay the same. And in many ways, I'm seeing one repeated lesson, which is not a good one, happen over and over again, where people are talking about AI as if it's an end in itself. And so there's a lot about, let me tell you about this AI experimentation we're doing. For every company, you always should start with, what is your business strategy? And for those of us who were around a decade ago when digital started, and at that time it was all about digital experimentation and e-commerce and analytics, you had a zillion different experiments, and then people said they couldn't scale, right? That's happened again with AI. We warned people about it. People thought this was even easier because the technology seemed so simple when it first came out. But my consistent piece of advice is the way to prioritize always starts with strategy. So for example, we worked with an insurance company that didn't have an enormous IT department, so had a limited set of resources. And for that CEO, top line growth was absolutely the most important. So 2 years ago, when the sort of AI revolution started, that CEO said, I am going to focus on what is going to move the needle, put all of my resources into my biggest priority, which is top line growth. And in that case, we selected a part of his insurance portfolio, and it was the Goldilocks rule. It wasn't too small, wasn't too big, right? So it was big enough to make a difference if we actually were successful, but small enough that if we weren't successful, it wasn't trying to start with the biggest line of business and potentially damage both people's view of it. And then we scaled, and now we're scaling to the bigger part of the businesses. In another case, I'm working with a much larger telecom communication company that has a really top line CIO function. They've rotated their technology. They're in the cloud. They have a good data foundation, and they have the resources and the experienced leadership that in comms you often have a lot of tech in your leadership, where they can go after more than one area at the same time. But in all cases, both to two very different models, always aligned with what is the business strategy, as opposed to starting with what does the AI do? Because if your business strategy requires cost takeout, and the first thing that you need to do is not implement Gen AI, but actually you haven't done process transformation, you don't have shared services, you have too many spans and layers, all the basics, AI shouldn't actually be the first thing that you do. And so by starting with the business strategy and then looking at what are the tools, what are the opportunities we have, you'll end up making sure that when you're investing in AI, you're getting the value from it.
I think so much well said in there. I love the Goldilocks idea too of you start with something not giant, not too small, but something where you can really make a difference and that feels just right. And also leading with the strategy first, not just like, oh my gosh, the technology is coming, let's figure it out. Excellent. So I'm going to toss to the audience. Just raise your hand if you've got any burning questions for Julie. Otherwise, I'm happy to keep hogging the time. I've got one in the back corner here. Do we have a microphone?
Thank you. My question would be, because you were asked, what advice do you give the 900 people that called you after Trump's Liberation Day? Because Trump also said, well, we need to crack down on anything DEI in corporates. So what's your advice to corporate leaders when they ask you, what should we do now?
I start with, at Accenture, our strategy around people has always been rooted, and diversity has always been rooted in our business strategy. So we want to be the most innovative company in our industry. In order to be the most innovative company in our industry, we have to have the diverse perspectives and experiences. And so our diversity and inclusion policies and practices has always started with our business strategy and, of course, our values of meritocracy, equality. Those are just the basics on how you treat people. And so what we are trying to do and what we talk about with companies is start with, when you look at your talent, what does your talent need to look like to achieve your business strategy? That didn't change, right? And then what we have said is we want to use this moment to refresh our talent development strategy. Frankly, when we looked at some of our programs, some of them hadn't actually been refreshed for a decade. And where we were a decade ago in terms of talent development is really different than where we are today. It's different in terms of recruiting, but also, and this is probably one of the most important topics that we're talking to CEOs about right now, is that talent development, the needs are radically different in the last 12 months because of AI, the level of sophistication that you need to have technology. And so we're really focused on our talent needs, our business strategy, and what our talent needs to bring to the table to serve that strategy and our clients.
So Julie, I just want to end with one last question for you. And it's a pivot, and that was an excellent question. Thank you. It's something we're all thinking about as well. You joined Accenture at 42 as the general counsel, not the CEO, and you've talked about how then you didn't have the skill set that you needed to have as CEO. So I'm just curious in the last minute here, if you could just tell us what were the missing skills, because we have, I'm sure, some aspiring CEOs or ambitious ladies in this audience who will eventually be CEOs if they're not already. What were the missing skills and how did you get there?
So first of all, as you know, Accenture is a technology powerhouse. When I joined Accenture in 2010 as the general counsel, I didn't know what a CIO was. Now, I just want you to think about that. Right? I'd come from a law firm. We didn't have such thing. We didn't use technology. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have the internet. Okay, I'm 57. But we were in an industry that didn't use technology. I share that with you because you cannot lead a company today or in the future without deeply understanding the power of technology, not as plumbing, but because AI is going to change everything in the front line. And so we are today defining those skills for all of our leaders and putting in leadership development, because we do have leaders that didn't need to grow up with as in-depth technology skills as they do today. And I share with you where I was in 2010 because anyone can learn these skills. Right? You have to be diligent, you have to be focused, and as companies, you need to enable your people. But at 42, most of the skills that matter today, I didn't have. And 15 years later, right, I have them. And I really hope that you take away from this that you can do everything. It requires you to identify the skills, what is needed, and then together with your company, make sure that you and all of your people come along that journey and have the skills. I'll just end with two things. I think I got cut off when I was saying before that I have a lot of envy that I can't be there, because I think the kingdom and the Middle East right now is one of the most dynamic and exciting places. And the leaders I've met, women and men, are amazing. I keep telling my daughters that I'd like one of them at least to learn Arabic, and they should go spend time, because I think there's so much happening and you have an opportunity to lead, to leapfrog, and to embrace these new technologies and new ways of working and go faster than any place else in the world. And so I just love, I've spent a lot of time now traveling, and I absolutely love it. And so I'm so sorry I'm not there.
Thank you,
And then
Julie.
I'll just end with
Go ahead.
my own inspiration. I have a plaque on my wall that says, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And I used that when I was trying to become the CEO of Accenture. And I look at it every day when I think about where I need to take our company and where I need to continue to learn as a company. So I hope for all of you that your dreams scare you, because that means you're going to make the impact that I know that you can make. So thank you so much for having me today. I hope next year I get to be there in person. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us, Julie. Amazing to talk to you always. And thanks to all of you. Now Ellie's going to come back. Thanks, Julie.